ever get into an argument over where to sit, like
Yeah.
maybe at a dinner party or even in the office.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely seen those seating chart showdowns.
Right. It's like this weird thing. It seems super simple, but it can get, well, intense.
Absolutely. You'd be surprised how much those seating arrangements can reveal. Like who's in charge, who's got the power. It's fascinating, really.
And today, that's exactly what we're diving into.
Power dynamics, hidden meanings, the whole 9 yards. But get this, we're not talking about your average office squabble.
Nope. Today's deep dive takes us straight to the Nigerian Senate. Buckle up.
Because where you sit in that chamber, yeah, that can have some serious consequences.
So listeners, if you're already following Nigerian politics, you probably caught wind of this. Senators Natasha and Akpabio are locked in a seating chart battle royale.
And the Senate itself actually sided against Natasha.
Okay, before we get too deep into this, can we just back up for a second? To those who maybe aren't familiar with the Nigerian Senate, what's the setup there?
Right, so the Nigerian Senate, it's a pretty complex system, over 100 senators representing different states and interests, and it's the upper house of Nigeria's bicameral legislature. So basically, a lot of big players, a lot at stake.
Okay, so back to Natasha and Akpabio. What exactly went down? Did Natasha, like, steal Akpabio's assigned seat or something?
Honestly, the sources we're looking at don't give us all the juicy details.
Ah, come on. That's the best
I
part.
know, right? But think about it. That lack of specifics, it actually makes things more interesting.
How so?
Well, it forces us to think about all those unwritten rules, the traditions, the unspoken power dynamics at play in a place like the Nigerian Senate. It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle with some of the pieces missing.
Oh, I like that. A political puzzle.
Huh?
So no rule book for seating arrangements.
Well, there may be some general guidelines, but things get a lot more nuanced when you factor in the political landscape. Factions, allegiances, personal rivalries, all those things can influence where people end up sitting.
Okay, so is there anything we know about these senators, Natasha and Akpabio? Like, do they belong to different political camps? Anything that might give us a clue as to why this seating thing became such a big deal?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, the information on their specific backgrounds or political affiliations is limited in the sources we have, but it's a smart angle to consider. Because in a system like Nigeria's, where personal relationships and political factions can hold a lot of sway, those connections often matter more than any official rule book.
It's like even if there's no rule saying you can't sit there, maybe there's an unspoken understanding that, oh, that's the seat reserved for someone from a certain party or faction or someone with more seniority.
Exactly. And stepping on those toes, even unintentionally, can cause serious waves.
And the Senate actually reprimanded Natasha, right? Like officially.
That's right, which definitely suggests this wasn't just a minor etiquette slip-up. This was seen as a challenge, a breach of protocol, however informal that protocol may be.
So how much weight does a reprimand from the Senate actually carry?
Well, it depends. It could be a warning, a slap on the wrist, or it could signal something more serious,
Like what?
like a potential shift in power dynamics. If Natasha's being publicly rebuked, it might embolden her rivals, make it harder for her to build alliances, or even push legislation she supports. And on the flip side, it could boost Akpabio's standing, giving her more leverage in negotiations.
Wow, all of that just from a seating dispute. It sounds almost Shakespearean, like the battle for the throne is playing out in miniature right there in the Senate chamber.
I love that analogy, and
Yeah.
it's so true, because ultimately what we're seeing here is a microcosm of the larger power struggles within the Nigerian government. These seemingly small incidents can be incredibly revealing.
Okay, so let's put on our conspiracy theory hats for a second. Could this seating dispute be a sign of even bigger things to come? Like, is this the first crack in the foundation before a major political earthquake?
That's a very intriguing question, and honestly, it's impossible to say for sure, but it's absolutely something to watch.
Right, like, is this a sign of rising tensions between different factions within the Senate? Or is it more about these two specific senators and their perhaps less than friendly relationship?
Precisely, and that's what makes this so fascinating. We're left with more questions than answers. But by analyzing these small, seemingly insignificant moments, we start to understand the bigger picture. We see how power operates, how traditions hold sway, and how even the placement of a chair can become a battleground.
Well said. I think this deep dive really highlights how important it is to pay attention to the details. You never know what those seemingly small things might reveal about the bigger picture.
Exactly.
So to our listeners, keep your eyes peeled. The next time you find yourself in a seating chart showdown, remember, you might be witnessing a power play in action. Thanks.